Hey all. So this one's a little bit late. I didn't have time to get to it last month, honestly. But we are finally going over Iron Man's Spotlight and adding some context. He's been out there for a while. A lot of people already had the 6 star. That's part of why I didn't make this earlier. So I know people know some things, but we'll just go through and hopefully this is a helpful resource for somebody who pulls him for the first time, isn't familiar, and just wants to know where some of these abilities are coming from. So, kind of skipping over the base stats, Prestige is solid. I think it might still be top 10. If not, I'm pretty sure it's top 20. But looking at the attributes, survivability at 3.5 is honestly too low, in my opinion. This dude is so tanky. Like, maybe if you take into account the fact that the regen only works once per quest now, you can kind of justify this in a questing context. But in war or in battlegrounds, it's really hard to kill this guy. So, yeah, I think I would move that one up half a point. Damage at 5 is always ambitious, but his damage is really, really good. So, we'll see how that holds. And ease of use at 4. This one is kind of interesting because I think for basic use, this is fair. But the fact that his kit rewards you for parrying the opponent's special attacks means that there is a ceiling there that is actually pretty high skill, and it's kind of incentivizing you to chase it. And if you mistime a parry on a special attack, as some of you already know, you get hit. So, yeah, there's definitely some risk in trying to push his limits. Utility 2.5, I think is decently fair. Good immunities, prowess removal. Defender strength 2.5. Like I already said, dude's a tank. Slowing people down has value on its own. Moving on to strengths and weaknesses, we already talked about damage, we already talked about prowess control, and his damage spikes even higher in prowess matchups. His healing is very good, especially if the once it works per quest is the only time you need it, like in Battlegrounds, and his immunities are pretty darn good. As for weaknesses, this guy relies a lot on his armor ups. Getting rid of them with armor break is very good at controlling him. Armor break immunity is also a problem because a lot of his damage scales with armor breaking the opponent, and then that healing is very good. If somebody stops it, he's going to be sad. That's kind of the basics, right? Moving on to the abilities, he can block unblockable special attacks against mutants. This is just flat out, it's a thing he can do, don't have to worry about it. You gain a huge chunk of block proficiency during the opponent's special attacks. Looking specifically at his armor ups, they increase armor rating by, this decently solid amount, and they are indefinite up to 5 stacks, kind of like Sam Wilson. And then additional stacks last for 6 seconds. As long as even one of them is active, Iron Man is immune to Cold Snap, Frostbite, and Incinerate. Since he starts with one, this means that he usually has those immunities. Very good. So personal armor ups also increase critical resistance. Even a little bit of critical resistance is very powerful. Like I said, this guy is extremely tanky. If there are a bunch of armor ups on him, it's hard to crit. If it's hard to crit, then it's hard to cut through that armor rating, and that contributes to just generally being hard to kill. It's the same reason that Doctor Doom is good, right? On top of that crit resistance, they cannot be removed by nullify effects. The nullify can still happen, it just won't remove the armor up. Their ability accuracy can only be modified by cosmic champions, meaning that like Gladiator or Armor Shattered can stop them, but somebody like Tigra with Neutralize cannot stop them even though they're a buff. And when they expire, naturally the opponent is power locked for just 0.2 of a second, which is intended to help counter Mystic Dispersion or Prey on the Weak, which is basically just questing Mystic Dispersion, right? Like we already said, you gain an armor up when the fight starts, and whenever Iron Man's combo meter passes a multiple of 5. This means you get 1 every single 5-hit combo. He was intentionally built to reward that simple playstyle. And whenever you block, you get a 25% chance to get another armor up, or when you're struck, right? Hopefully this doesn't come up too much on attack, but it is something that you have to think about on defense. Now, a terminology clarification before we start this next part. I am going to be using parry as shorthand for well-timed blocks. Some people use parry specifically to mean when you stun the opponent with your parry, which is why you'll see things, expressions like, you can't parry Ebony Maw unless you can parry projectiles, right? I've even said that myself. But the parry mastery itself, the damage reduction you get from executing a well-timed block, does not require that stun to fire. And so I make a distinction between the actual parry itself, the well-timed block that reduces the damage, and the parry stun, the stun you get from it when you parry specifically a contact basic attack, right? So with that clarification in mind, if you parry an opponent's special attack, you're going to gain a pause for your arm reps for 10 seconds. And if you activate a special attack, then you gain another pause for 5 seconds per bar of power spent. And these pauses expire one at a time. That part right there is why I phrased it differently than in the info page, because it's important to note that you will get multiple stacking pauses. This behaves similar to Atuma's Hydration or at Howard the Duck's Armor Breaks or Furies, in that you will stack up a bunch of these and then you will see the timer tick down for the one on top, and while that one is expiring, all of the ones below are at full duration and paused indefinitely, right? So you're only ever losing one at a time. This means that if you can stack a number of these pauses on top of each other, if you can keep gaining them, then the ones below are never going to even start ticking down. And if you get good with Iron Man, it's not all that unusual for your arm reps to just be paused indefinitely for the entire fight. Moving on to the arc reactor, this is what you're building towards with your armor ups. When you get to 12 or more, the arc reactor activates. You get another little icon on the HUD, and you gain 100 charges for it. Whenever you strike your opponent with a basic, that's going to consume a single reactor charge, so you could theoretically land 100 basics if you did nothing else. And reaching 0 charges causes the arc reactor to expire and consume 12 armor ups. So note that this is not a time-based effect. There's no duration. You're just landing hits, consuming charges, and when you're done, it goes away. The specific intent here from the designer was that you wouldn't have to worry about your stuff expiring. You would just perform a certain number of actions, and then you would run out of stuff, right? So that can make playing Iron Man feel a little bit less hectic than some other champions. Now, while the arc reactor is active, you gain a big boost to attack rating, and then you gain more attack for every armor up you have above 12, because remember, you can keep stacking them while you're in this mode. Any effect that increases the potency of armor ups also increases the potency of these attack rating bonuses. This is kind of an odd ability, but it means that whenever you see something that says enhanced armor ups, right, or if you get like an improved armor up hack in incursions, these attack bonuses are also going to scale with that. This is also important because the signature ability improves armor ups, and so the signature ability also improves these attack ratings. Anything you get that's going to improve your armor ups makes you hit harder. Good to keep in mind. Now, every special attack is going to invalidate 3 prowess on each hit. Invalidate was a new term for Iron Man, but you can think of it as basically like a nullify that is targeted specifically at prowess. It's not a nullify, it won't trigger return policy, it doesn't care if it's a buff or a passive, but it is a kind of removal specifically looking for prowess, right? And so each hit in the special is going to invalidate 3 prowess. Some of these specials have a number of hits, and so you can get rid of a lot of prowess very, very quickly. And for each prowess removed this way, you're going to deal a burst of damage. So getting rid of a bunch of prowess off the opponent is also going to do a bunch of direct damage. While the arc reactor is active, you're going to consume reactor charges on activation to increase the potency of any buffs or debuffs you get during the special, right? And this works for any buffs or debuffs from Iron Man's kit. It also works from anything you're getting from a synergy or a quest node, or if you're fighting Iron Man, for anything that he gets during the special. So you might want to be careful about this while he's in Arc Reactor. The special 1, you're going to get an armor break off of each hit. They're pretty chunky armor breaks. They last for 20 seconds. This is kind of your big damage special. It just makes all of your hits hit that much harder. And you are also going to gain armor up buffs when you invalidate a prowess, specifically with this special, which is going to give you that extra attack rating if you are in Arc Reactor mode. Additionally, if you're in Arc Reactor mode, rather than just ramping towards it, then this special grants no power to the opponent, which is obviously nice because then it means you can keep wailing on them afterwards, right? The special 2 is more of a ramp special. You're going to gain 5 armor up buffs. This can be really good for accelerating you towards Arc Reactor. If you're already in it, then you can potentially give yourself more of a buffer so that when you come out of Arc Reactor, you have more armor ups building you towards the next activation, if you want to go that way instead of using the special 1. But often you will use this specifically to try and get into it faster. If this is the special attack that it self-activates Arc Reactor by taking you above 12 stacks, you also get extra reactor charges, meaning the mode lasts longer for each armor up beyond 12 stacks. So ideally you throw this special 2 when you're at 11 stacks of armor. It takes you up to 16, and you get not just 100 Arc Reactor charges, but 160, 15 for each of those 4 extra armor ups. You're going to be hitting harder while you're in that. You're going to be able to throw more specials, more basics, and get the benefits of the mode for longer. It can be very powerful if you build it that way and time it correctly. Special 3 grants 7 armor up buffs and refreshes all existing ones. That refresh isn't going to be super huge if you've been really on top of your pauses and stacking them. But if you've had some downtime, or maybe it took you a while to get the first one going and you were about to lose some armor up effects, now you refresh them to their original full duration. This special, because it consumes 3 bars of power, is going to give you a 15-second pause on top of whatever ones you may have had, and set you up really well for a long fight with a ton of armor ups. Additionally, you get a decent Incinerate passive over 20 seconds, and while this is active, hitting the opponent pauses Incinerates. So that pauses this Incinerate itself, allowing you to make it longer and cause it to do more damage, but Iron Man also has access to some Incinerates through synergies, and this is really good with those. Now, the signature ability, like we already said, increases the potency of arm reps, meaning it also increases the attack rating you get from Arc Reactor. It just flat out doubles the amount of block proficiency you gain during the opponent's special attacks. You get that at Sig 1. And whenever Iron Man's health drops below 15%, you get a regen passive, giving you about 2/3 of your health back over 6 seconds. You can also activate this manually at half potency if you press block 2 times during one of your own specials. This is something that we are looking at because a lot of people have complained about the fact that this doesn't care about the timing of those 2 blocks within the special. It just requires you to block twice, somewhere in between entering the animation and leaving it. If you're like me, you might be in the habit of kind of nervously tapping the left side of the screen. I don't know, maybe I'm reminding myself it's still there. And you can activate this accidentally, something to duel for and be cognizant of, try to avoid, because you don't necessarily want to pop this early, right? And then as an attacker specifically, this regen can only trigger once per quest, so you got to be careful with it and pick your moment, but that also means in Battlegrounds you can use it every fight to top yourself up. And that's basically Iron Man. He's been out for a while, like I said. There have been some good videos on him. I've already assigned him in War several times. He's very good, he's very simple. He has a lot of armor. He makes it hard to ignore that armor because of his resistance to nullify and because of his crit resistance. He does a lot of damage, especially when you can armor break the opponent. He's generally tanky and heals, right? He's a quintessential tech champion. Hits hard, tanky, good against prowess. So hopefully that helped answer any questions you still had about Iron Man. And until the next time, thank you so much for watching, and take care.